The Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews' supporters on Twitter and in politics and the media have lauded the way he's fronted daily, never-ending media conferences. You've all heard it. They've even boasted when he notched up 100 presses in a row. Now, think about how silly this is, trumpeting the fact that a Premier gives up an hour or two of every day, even when he's got bugger all to say, when he could be doing other things. So he never has a day off, and we presume none of his other ministers are up to the task. Anyway, as you know, I've been calling this out for months, and I reckon he should take time off. Go for a walk around Melbourne, see the empty shops, see the people rushing home from the park in their masks before they're fined, see the destruction, desolation and social decay that his response to the coronavirus has delivered. But he keeps doing these presses instead. Presumably, this is an attempt to forge his leadership image, make a martyr of himself and parade himself as the saviour of the state rather than the bloke who messed up the whole show. Still, whether you support Daniel Andrews or not, these daily media events are a mistake for a number of reasons. First, they catastrophise the situation. They cultivate a sense of crisis. They're predicated on the idea that the people of Victoria, nay, the nation, need a daily update from the Premier, when that's simply not the case. It might have been justified early on when you want to get early community buy-in, but the longer they go, the more they forestall any sense of normality. And they suggest that the pandemic is the only issue that matters in Victoria. That's just not the case. Other things matter, like people getting on with their lives, earning a living or completing their studies. Daniel Andrews needs to get out and about and see more of that. It might help him make some wiser decisions. This whole focus isolates the Premier and keeps him focused on his own obsession, so that we end up seeing day after day the Premier explaining various aspects in microscopic detail in a way that just wastes his time and everybody else's. Look at this from today's appearance.
I'm happy to follow up on that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether the asterisk relates to that individual or whether it probably should better relate to, and I haven't seen the tweet, or whether the asterisk might better relate to the person who's had it some time ago and has retested as positive and is likely to be shedding the virus and has therefore come up as a positive, which the expert panel may well rule as a false positive, or a positive but not infectious, or some term in between those.
What? Honestly, why? Why does he do this? He's got the state to run. Or he did have. But he wastes hours of time, day after day, on this stuff. On the evidence so far, his time would be better spent checking on what decisions he's already made, what offers of help he's already rejected, because he keeps telling us he's either forgotten that or never knew in the first place. For instance, over the weekend and again yesterday, Andrews created a ridiculous furore complaining about New Zealanders coming into Victoria from New South Wales, even though, as we showed you yesterday, his own health department had been told and was comfortable about this, and his chief health officer had given the Kiwis the green light more than 2 weeks ago in a media conference alongside the Premier. So today, Andrews backed down.
How we got to the point of being in the bubble, I think we've dealt with that. We don't need to go back through that again. I'm very confident that we've found all the people that had arrived. We've had a chat to them.
Had a chat to them? Really? Knocking on doors? Why? To welcome them to Victoria after talking about them over the past couple of days as if they were lepers? What nonsense. Fancy wasting the time of Victorian authorities chasing down these New Zealanders for nothing but political theatre. Haven't they got more important things to do? Anyway, Andrews' political games on this have been so ridiculous that now, today, he says this.
It may be, given that's where we find ourselves, that it's just as easy to have international flights from New Zealand come here. So we're having a think about that, and if we can get that done, then I'll be able to confirm that at the appropriate time.
Yep, on the weekend and yesterday he was complaining about Kiwis coming into his state and he was tracking them down. Today he says they can fly in direct. What a joke. What a joke these daily thought bubbles are. And what a joke these border shenanigans are right across this country. In South Australia, where they slammed 5 New Zealanders into hotel quarantine yesterday, the Premier Stephen Marshall has done an about-face too. Now he's suddenly talking about letting direct flights from New Zealand in too, and he's demanding reciprocal rights. All steps in the right direction, sure, but why the cruel and idiotic theatrics over the past few days? Western Australia and Tasmania, they've still got hard borders. Queensland excludes people from New South Wales. And Victoria is the only state that lets people in from all other states. The trouble is they can't leave because no other states will take anyone back without quarantining. Yet Andrews says he doesn't want people just turning up. Well, that's actually what we normally do across state borders in this country. And if you've got them open, as Victoria has, then people will just turn up. This is a good thing. It's not something to complain about, Premier. I think he's confused. Still, having stuffed up hotel quarantine, Andrews is now looking at quarantining people like prisoners on parole, confining them to home with electronic tags.
But as far as bracelets, anklets, whatever we might call them, that electronic monitoring was drawn to my attention that other countries are doing it, and I simply said, that's worth having a look at. Let's go and have a look at that. If we can get people safely into their own home, but have a high degree of confidence that they're not spreading the virus, and we can actually monitor their health status at the same time, that seems to me a fairly common sense thing to do.
Yeah, common sense to him. Might not wash with others, we'll see. And just a reminder that underneath all this madness, the locked borders, the political posturing, the families kept apart and the businesses kept in limbo, over the past 24 hours, there were 2 new local coronavirus cases in New South Wales and 1 in Victoria. There were none in the rest of the country. Lucky those interstate borders are shut.